January 2024. Some countries, such as Malaysia and Turkey, have welcomed the legal process against Israel filed by South Africa to the ICJ over alleged violations to 1948 Genocide Convention on Palestine citizens in the Gaza Strip. Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or OIC, in its official statement also supported the measures taken by South Africa. Meanwhile, the United States sees South Africa's motion as useless.
Moving on, 2 people were killed and dozens were injured in an Israeli airstrike on a house in Rafah, according to health officials.
Reuters footage shows locals and civil defense clearing through rubble with their hands, searching for survivors using mobile phone lights due to a lack of electricity. Residents also assessed the damages. The attacks on Rafah took place following the burial of Deputy Hamas chief Saleh al-Aruri, who was killed in a drone attack in Beirut. Aruri was a stronghold of the allied Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, signaling the conflict between Hamas and Israel could be expanding to engulf more of the region. Israel's ground and air blitz has laid waste to Gaza. The total recorded Palestinian death toll had reached 22,438 by Thursday, almost 1% of its 2.3 million population, the Gaza Health Ministry said. Some 125 of these were killed in the past 24 hours, it said.
Reverend Al Sharpton and his National Action Network picketed outside the New York City office of billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman to protest his attacks against former Harvard University president Claudine Gay.
Picketers marched, chanted, and waved signs reading, "This is good trouble and no justice, no peace." Harvard President Claudine Gay said she would resign from her position, ending a 6-month tenure marked by allegations of plagiarism and backlash over her congressional testimony about anti-Semitism on campus. Gay had come under pressure to resign from Harvard's Jewish community and some members of Congress over her comments at the December 5 congressional hearing, while also facing several allegations of plagiarism for her academic work in recent months. Some of Gay's critics, including Ackman, have argued that she was chosen for the role as part of the school's effort to promote diversity rather than for her qualifications. A right-wing activist, including journalist and researcher Christopher Rufo, celebrated Gay's resignation on Tuesday as a win in their mission to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion programs.
The Palestine Red Crescent Society, or PRC, has released a video showing smoke rising from its building in Gaza's Khan Younis.
PRC has said on its X social media account that the footage was of the first moments of the targeting of the PRSCS headquarters in Khan Younis, which has led to 7 injuries among the displaced families. The location was verified as Khan Younis from the position of the trees and buildings, which matched satellite imagery of the area. The design of the building also matched file imagery of the same location. Early on Thursday, Gaza Health Ministry officials said Israeli shelling killed 14 Palestinians in Khan Younis, in the southern coastal area of the Gaza Strip. Gaza residents also said Israeli planes and tanks bombarded 3 refugee camps in the center of the shattered enclave in heavier attacks than in previous days.
Palestinians in Gaza's Jabalia refugee camp spoke of facing water shortages and lack of sanitation. People stood in line to fill water containers at a tap in the street.
One man, Abu Muhammad, said there was no water available in the refugee camp and people had to search the local area for sources of water. Hygiene is only getting worse in the refugee camp, Muhammad added, saying even insects invaded the houses and on the streets. Israeli bombardments have flattened much of the densely populated enclave, wreaking a humanitarian disaster. Most Gazans have been left homeless, crammed into shrinking areas in hope of rudimentary shelter, with food shortages threatening famine.
Moving on to the next news, Hamas leader Khaled Mashal said that Israel wants to export the crisis to abroad and expand the circle of aggression.
His comments came in a televised statement made 2 days after the deputy chief of Hamas, Saleh Aruri, was killed in a drone strike in the southern suburb of Beirut, a stronghold of allied Lebanese armed group Hezbollah, as he was meeting with a group of Palestinian and Lebanese men from factions allied to Hamas. Israel has not confirmed or denied involvement. Aruri's death was the first targeted assassination of a Hamas official outside Palestinian territory since the Palestinian group's deadly assault in southern Israel on October 7 that triggered Israel's onslaught on Gaza. Analysts said it was also a message from Israel to Hezbollah that even its prime stronghold on the edge of Beirut could be reached. Aruri, 57, was one of the founders of the Qassam Brigades before taking on a political portfolio in recent years. Though less influential than Hamas's leaders in Gaza, Aruri was seen as a key player in the movement, masterminding its operations in the West Bank from exile in Syria, Turkey, Qatar, and finally Lebanon after long stints in Israeli prisons.
Next, we will have a series of news of updates from Iran. Indonesia condemned the deadly attack in Kerman, Iran on Wednesday, which killed dozens and injured hundreds others, including children.
The Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through its ex-social media account, conveyed its deepest condolences to the families of the victims and the people of Iran. The two explosions in southeastern Iranian city of Kerman on Wednesday killed 87 and injured 284 others. The location of the explosions was close to the cemetery of former Iran top military commander General Qasem Soleimani. Thousands of people gathered in the area to commemorate the 4th anniversary of Soleimani's death. Soleimani, a leader of Al-Quds Brigade of the Iran Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, died of a U.S. drone attack in Baghdad, Iraq in January 2020. ISIS, via its channel on cross-platform instant messaging app Telegram, claimed responsibility on the Wednesday's attack.
Meanwhile, the family and friends of those killed in 2 explosions near Qasem Soleimani's burial site in Kerman, Iran, are mourning their loss. Soleimani, one of the most powerful military commanders in Iran, was killed on January 3, 2020, near Baghdad's International Airport in a drone strike ordered by then U.S. President Donald Trump. He was buried in his hometown of Kerman after a funeral that drew millions of mourners across Iran. On Wednesday afternoon, an explosion went off near Soleimani's burial site, where a large number of people were commemorating the anniversary of his death. 10 minutes later, a second explosion occurred. The blast killed 84 people and wounded 284 others. The Iranian government has declared a day of national mourning. Iran's Revolutionary Guards and First Vice President Mohammad Mokhber pledged revenge for explosions killing nearly 100 people at a ceremony commemorating Qasem Soleimani's death.
Mokhber said a strong retaliation will be handed to them on the hands of the soldiers of Soleimani. In comments made to reporters at a hospital where some of the wounded were receiving treatment for the bloodiest attack since 1979 Islamic Revolution. In Kerman, mourners gathered near the site of the explosion to protest, lay flowers for the victim, and chanted slogans against Israel, Britain, and the U.S. The U.S. assassination of Soleimani in a January 3, 2020 drone attack at Baghdad airport and Tehran's retaliation by attacking 2 Iraqi military bases that house U.S. troops brought the U.S. and Iran close to full-blown conflict. As chief commander of the elite Quds Force, the overseas arm of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, Soleimani ran clandestine operations abroad and was a key figure in Iran's long-standing campaign to drive U.S. forces from the Middle East.
Indonesian Foreign Affairs Ministry and Indonesian Embassy in Beirut plan to evacuate Indonesians in Lebanon after the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza Strip has spread into southern part of Lebanon. Foreign Affairs Ministry spokesperson Lalu Muhammad Iqbal said his ministry and the Indonesian embassy in Beirut have communicated with the Indonesian community and Indonesia's peacekeeping troops in Lebanon to check when an evacuation is due. Iqbal said that the conflict is currently taking place at the borders of Israel and Lebanon, far from Lebanon. Iqbal said that his ministry has prepared the infrastructure needed for evacuation, such as vehicles, evacuation route, and the personnel who will lead the evacuation process. The number of Indonesians in Lebanon is 217 people. Thousands of mourners gathered in Beirut for the funeral of the deputy chief of Hamas, Saleh al-Aruri, and officials killed in a drone strike on Tuesday. Following the funeral procession, Aruri and two Palestinians who were killed alongside him were buried in a cemetery at the Palestinian camp of Shatila, amid throngs of mourners launching volleys of gunfire. Aruri was killed in a drone strike on Tuesday in the southern suburb of Beirut as he was meeting with a group of Palestinian and Lebanese men from factions allied to Hamas. All 7 people attending the meeting in Beirut were killed. The bodies of several were blown into several parts by the strike, complicating preparations for the burial. Mourners gathered for the funeral procession of the deputy head of Hamas. Meanwhile, Hamas deputy chief Saleh al-Aruri's hometown in Aurora, West Bank, was celebrated with Palestinian flags and banners.
Mourners attended the funeral procession for Hamas deputy head Saleh al-Aruri and 2 officials killed by Israeli drone strike in Beirut, with Israel denying involvement. Thousands of people gathered in the streets to pay their respects as the 3 coffins were carried past crowds in the Lebanese capital. Aruri was the first senior Hamas political leader to be assassinated outside Palestinian territory since Israel began its offensive against the Palestinians in response to its deadly rampage from Gaza into Israeli towns on October 7. And also, Aruri was one of the founders of the Qassam Brigades before taking on a political portfolio in recent years. He was buried in the Palestinian camp of Shatila in Beirut. Aruri was killed in a drone strike on Tuesday on the southern suburb of Beirut, a stronghold of allied Lebanese armed group Hezbollah, as he was meeting with a group of Palestinian and Lebanese men from factions allied to Hamas.
And next, we will have updates post the earthquake in Japan. Stay with us on Focus today.
Luwih apa cek sekehe cerita liananira.
Lontar Yusuf is a narrative poem about the life of one of Islam's most popular prophets, Prophet Yusuf.
Lontar itu naskah, dan kebetulan ini banyak orang bilang itu naskah kuno. Sebetulnya awalnya lontar itu ditulis di daun lontar medianya itu. Sekarang teknologi itu semakin canggih hingga disalin ke media kertas.
In this episode, we will get acquainted with one of the barong in East Java, namely Barong Kemiren, which is located in the city of Banyuwangi.
Jadi sejarah Barong Kemiren iki kawite iki kanggo arak-arakan slametan desa ana ning Kemiren iki ya iku kan diarani terbumi lan slametan desa tumbang sewa. Jadi ambil melakoni zaman terus perkembangan zaman akhirnya biarong iki muka ya jadi tontonan. Dan saya sehari-hari beraktivitas, saya membuat kerajinan patung barong ya ciri khas Banyuwangi dan
You're back on Focus Today, and let's continue Focus Today with updates from Japan. Recent earthquakes in central Japan have raised public concern over the safety of the Shika nuclear power plant, which is closest to the epicenter of a major earthquake. The Shika plant in Ishikawa Prefecture has been offline since the 2011 Fukushima Daiichi disaster, and there had been some power outages and oil leaks following Monday's jolt, but no radiation leakage, said Hokuriku Electric Power Company, operator of the Shika plant. The Hokuriku Electric Power Company has been actively working to restart the plant. However, the recent earthquakes and aftershocks have sparked concerns among local residents regarding the safety of the plant once it's resumed operations. Eyewitness video shot showed Wajima residents escaping from a landslide after a deadly earthquake struck the Japanese city of Ishikawa Prefecture.
In the footage, a person is heard shouting, while another person is seen running from the landslide as it crashes down on a road, downing power lines and destroying several houses in its path. A crack is seen developing on the road. The date and location of the video was verified by original file metadata. Buildings, trees and hills seen in the video also match street view imagery from that location. Witnesses at the site who are seeking shelter in Kanazawa, Ishikawa's capital, said the mountain above their home collapsed and engulfed all the houses below it. They added there is a shortage of emergency supplies, including fuel, food and drinking water in evacuation centers.
Japanese rescuers pulled an elderly man from a collapsed building in the earthquake-struck city of Zuzu, footage released by police have showed. Meanwhile, a century-old workshop renowned worldwide for its traditional lacquerware lay in smoldering ruins following a devastating earthquake and fire.
According to media reports, the man, who is in his 80s, was trapped in the house for around 44 hours. They do not give details on the current status of the man or the injuries he sustained. Rescuers are racing against the clock in search for survivors of the Monday earthquake that killed at least 73, while evacuees continue to wait for further aid amid freezing temperatures and heavy rain. The full extent of damage and casualties remains unclear 3 days after the quake, which is already the deadliest in Japan since at least 2016. Nearly 600 tremors continue to hit the peninsula, raising fears of landslides and further damage to the infrastructure. Meantime, Kohei Kirimoto, an 8th-generation lacquer artist, walked through rubble concerned only for his beloved cat. He put out food and water for not just the 3 cats that lived in his home and workspace, but also for dozens of community felines that lived in Wajima's Asaichi morning market, famed for its winding stalls of seafood, snacks and crabs. Wajima was hit hardest by a 7.6 magnitude earthquake that struck central Japan on the afternoon of New Year's Day, the strongest in the country since the 2011 Fukushima disaster.
The wreckage of a Japan Airlines flight that caught fire after colliding with a Coast Guard plane is set to be removed from Tokyo's Haneda Airport. Dozens of onlookers could be seen crowding around an airport observation deck to catch a glimpse of the wreckage, although there appeared to be no sign of preparations for the wreckage removal as of 8 a.m. local time. 5 crew members aboard the smaller Coast Guard aircraft were killed in Tuesday's collision, but all 379 people aboard the Japan Airlines Airbus A350 managed to evacuate. Police have set up an investigation unit at the airport and plan to interview those involved, but have declined to say whether they were examining any suggestions of negligence. And next, we move on to France. Northern France experienced floods due to Atlantic storms, while German Chancellor Olaf Scholz promised help to the people in the flooded and potentially endangered areas in Germany. Let's head back now to Indonesia, where at least 3 people were killed in a train collision in Babakan, Cicalengka, about 400 meters from Cicalengka Station, Bandung, West Java, Friday morning.
Footage from the scene showed mangled train carriages, including some that had gone off the rails and into an adjacent rice field. Public Relations Manager of PTKAI in Bandung, Ayapanapi, confirmed the accident. He said one of the trains was a local commuter line, and the other was a long-distance passenger route heading west to Bandung from the city of Surabaya when the crash occurred. Bandung is around 100 miles. Meanwhile, the Bandung Police Chief Commissioner Kusworo Wibowo, said 3 people, including machinist, assistant machinist, and train worker, were killed in the crash, while all the passengers of both trains were safe and had been evacuated. Vice President for Public Relations of PT Kereta Api Indonesia, or KAI, Johnny Martinus, also confirmed the train accident. The 2 trains are Turangga with number P65A with destination from Surabaya, Gubeng, and Bandung Station, with the commuter line train destination Padalarang Station to Cicalengka Station. The location of the accident was between Haurpuruk Station and Cicalengka Station at kilometer 181.
Numerous earthquakes and volcanic eruptions at some parts of the country in the past and until recently should have increased our awareness of Indonesia's vulnerability to such natural disasters. Similar incidents of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions on the other parts of the globe simultaneously should have taught us that despite being unpreventable in nature, their devastating impacts could still be reduced to a minimum.
Several earthquakes took place in West Java's Sumedang Regency from Sunday, December 31, 2023 to the following Monday. The first one was a 4.1 magnitude earthquake, 7 kilometers deep, occurring at 2:35 p.m. The second was a 3.4 magnitude earthquake, 6 kilometers deep, at around 3:38 p.m. The third and largest earthquake reached a magnitude of 4.8, 5 kilometers deep, at 8:34 p.m. 2 aftershocks occurred around Sunday at 11:23 p.m. and Monday at around 3:47 p.m. The Meteorology, Climatology and Geophysics Agency or BMKG recorded another earthquake with a magnitude of 4.4 at a depth of 10 kilometers on Monday at 8:46 p.m. The earthquake in Sumedang has left 11 people injured, damaged 248 houses, and forced 456 residents to evacuate to safe places. Elsewhere, Mount Lewotobi Laki-Laki in East Nusa Tenggara has erupted several times in recent weeks, including an eruption on Monday that spewed volcanic ash 1.5 kilometers above its peak, according to the Center for Volcanology and Geological Hazard Mitigation. The agency recorded another eruption from Lewotobi Laki-Laki on Tuesday, but ash clouds from the volcano were not observed, it said in a statement. Volcanic ashes from recent eruptions have affected two sub-districts near Lewotobi Laki-Laki Mountain, prompting more than 2,200 residents to evacuate to temporary shelters set up by local government. Last month, Mount Marapi in West Sumatra erupted, killing 23 people. Indonesia has nearly 130 active volcanoes. Indonesia is a seismically very active country. The United States Geological Survey, or USGS, even lists Indonesia as the country with the most earthquakes in the world. Indonesia lies on the Pacific Ring of Fire, the world's greatest volcanic and seismic belt, where 81% of recorded earthquakes occur. Being located on the Pacific Ring of Fire, Indonesia also has to cope with constant risk of volcanic eruptions, floods, and tsunamis. Indonesia is also at the junction of three major and active tectonic plates, the Indo-Australian, Eurasian, and Pacific plates. These three active tectonic plates cause the subduction zones that form these volcanoes. On the other part of the globe, Japanese rescuers scrambled to search for survivors on Wednesday as authorities warn of landslide and heavy rain after a powerful earthquake that killed at least 62 people and injured 300 others. The 7.5 magnitude quake on Monday that rattled Ishikawa Prefecture on the main island of Honshui triggered tsunami waves more than a meter high, sparked a major fire, and tore apart roads. The Noto Peninsula of the prefecture was most severely hit, with several hundred buildings ravaged by fire and houses flattened in several towns, including Wajima and Suzu, as shown by before and after satellite images released on Wednesday. The toll was expected to climb as rescuers battle aftershocks and poor weather to comb through rubble. More than 31,800 people were in shelters, the government said. Volcanoes and earthquakes are interrelated as both occur due to movement to the Earth's tectonic plates. They are both triggered by the heat and energy releasing from the Earth's core. Earthquakes can trigger volcanic eruption through severe movement of tectonic plates. Similarly, volcanoes can trigger earthquakes through the movement of magma within a volcano. Therefore, one aspect of how are volcanoes and earthquakes interrelated is the cyclical relationship where earthquakes cause volcanic eruption and magma movement causes earthquakes. Earthquakes and volcanic eruption in itself are dangerous natural phenomena which poses risks to humans. Furthermore, earthquakes and volcanic eruption could create underwater disturbances that may lead to tsunamis. Indonesia and Japan are both prone to earthquake and volcanic eruption due to their geographic positions. Yet, the recent earthquake in Japan has taught us an important lesson. While figure does matter, the considerably significant number of fatalities and damaged properties in Ishikawa were particularly because the 7.5 magnitude of the earthquake was indeed big in scale and disastrous in its impacts. However, the number of fatalities and damaged properties could have been much bigger if all buildings in Japan, including in Ishikawa Prefecture, were not quake resistant and if Japanese people had been less aware of proper disaster response measures. Natural disasters are unpreventable, but their impacts could be contained with complete obedience to scientific and carefully studied disaster response management system.
And next, we have a news recap on a special segment from VOA's Asia Weekly. Transport officials and police began separate investigation at Tokyo's Haneda Airport, and Chinese President Xi Jinping reiterated his threat to take over Taiwan. Chris Casuejo has more on VOA's Asia Weekly.
The new year brings differing visions of cross-strait relations between China and Taiwan. Welcome to VOA Asia Weekly. I'm Chris Casquejo in Washington. That story is just ahead, but first making headlines. Transport officials and police in Japan began separate investigations at Tokyo's Haneda Airport on Wednesday after a large passenger plane and a Japanese Coast Guard aircraft collided on the runway and burst into flames Tuesday evening, killing 5 people aboard the Coast Guard plane. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said the country was at a critical moment Wednesday as the search for victims following a deadly earthquake continued. A series of powerful earthquakes on Monday that hit western Japan left at least 84 people dead as rescue workers fought to save those feared trapped under the rubble of collapsed buildings. South Korea President Yoon Suk-yeol on Wednesday condemned an attack on opposition leader Lee Jae-myung as an act of terrorism during his meeting with government officials and religious leaders. Lee was stabbed in the neck on Tuesday while walking through a crowd of journalists and others after a tour of a proposed new airport site in Busan. Hong Kong media tycoon and pro-democracy activist Jimmy Lai pleaded not guilty Tuesday to criminal charges accusing him of violating national security laws. The 76-year-old Lai has been charged with 2 counts of conspiring to collude with foreign forces and 1 count of conspiracy to print seditious publications. Lai founded the now-defunct pro-democracy newspaper Apple Daily and was one of the most prominent Hong Kong critics of China's Communist Party leadership, including President Xi Jinping. China's BYD has overtaken U.S. vehicle giant Tesla as the world's largest electric vehicle seller, according to recent figures. The Chinese company announced sales of 526,409 all-electric cars in the 4th quarter of 2023, surpassing Tesla's 484,507 in the same period. Chinese President Xi Jinping has renewed his threat to take over the democratic island of Taiwan, while Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen called for peaceful coexistence with Beijing. The New Year comments come just ahead of the Taiwan presidential election that could have a big impact on China-Taiwan relations. VOA's Bill Gallo reports from Taipei.
Ringing in the new year in Taiwan, a festive mood, but plenty of uncertainty ahead of an election that will shape the future of this democratic island. In a New Year's speech, President Tsai Ing-wen called for Taiwan to safeguard peace and democracy.
We also hope the two sides will jointly seek a long-term and stable way of peaceful coexistence under peace, parity, democracy, and dialogue.
In Beijing, a different vision. President Xi Jinping renewed China's threat to take over Taiwan.
China will surely be reunified, and all Chinese on both sides of the Taiwan Strait should be bound by a common sense of purpose and share in the glory of the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation.
On the streets of Taipei, there's virtually no appetite for what Xi is proposing.
I don't want to be a part of China. I think myself as a Taiwanese. I'm not Chinese.
For me, Taiwan is Taiwan, China is China. That's too different.
China is China and Taiwan is Taiwan. I feel right now it's good, so don't need to do any change.
Next week, Taiwan holds a general election. The ruling party candidate holds a slight lead over his opposition rival. The opposition has traditionally supported closer ties with Beijing. But that position has gotten much harder to maintain as China increases its military threats against Taiwan. In recent months, Chinese military aircraft and ships have come closer than ever to Taiwan, a reminder of danger on the horizon. Bill Gallo, VOA News, Taipei, Taiwan.
Visit voanews.com for the most up-to-date stories. I'm Chris Casquejo. Finally, a South Korean zoo unveiled new baby panda twins on Wednesday before their official debut to the public. The twin cubs, Ruibao and Huibao, were presented to zoo visitors starting Thursday as the youngest members of the panda family at amusement park Everland south of Seoul. They will only be seen in public a few hours every morning with their mother panda Aibao until they get used to the exposure, Everland officials said. The twins, both female, were born at the amusement park in July. In 2020, their sibling Fubao was the first panda to be born in South Korea. Thanks for watching VOA Asia Weekly.
And next, we will go to the 2024 election update. General Elections Commission have its themes for the third debate session of presidential election. Details are next in our Road to Ballot election highlights. The General Election Commission, or KPU, defended decision to appoint two academics from the Indonesia Defense University as panelists for the upcoming third debate session of presidential candidates for the 2024 general election.
KPU Commissioner August Mella said the two academics from Indonesian Defense University was chosen based on their knowledge and competence. They are defense expert Kusnanto Anggoro and chairman of university's Council of Professors, retired Admiral Marsetio. Website of Indonesia Defense University stipulates that university is academically supervised by the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology, and functionally supervised by Ministry of Defense. Presidential candidate number 2, Prabowo Subianto, currently serves as a Ministry of Defense. Besides the two Indonesian Defense University academics, rector of Bandung-based General Ahmad Yani University, Hikmahanto Juwana, has also been selected by the KPU as panelist for the third debate session. The university was established by Kartika Eka Paksi Foundation, which is affiliated with the Indonesian Army. The third debate session between the three presidential candidates, Anies Baswedan, Prabowo Subianto, and Ganjar Pranowo, will be held at Istora Senayan, Jakarta on Sunday evening.
The General Election Commission have added the themes for the third debate session of the 2024 presidential election that will be held at Istora Senayan, Jakarta on Sunday, January 7th.
Previously, the themes for the third debate were related to four issues, namely defense, security, geopolitics, and international relations. However, KPU has decided to add two more issues in the theme so that the total subjects to be debated has increased to 6, including defense security, international relations, globalization, geopolitics, and foreign policy. The addition was agreed during a coordinating meeting at KPU office on Wednesday, which finalized preparation for the third debate session between presidential candidates. Member of KPU August Mella said the reasoning for adding the debate themes was to adjust the 6 debate segments. This would mean that each segment will cover the entire of the debate themes.
Widya Setiabudi Sumadinata, one of the panelists for the third debate session, said that the presidential candidates can explain their strategy in building a strong national defense. Widya is a professor of global security at Pajajaran University in Bandung.
Widya Setiabudi said on Wednesday that issue on national defense is crucial after the Ministry of Defense said that it has budget limitations. Therefore, presidential candidates are expected to explain their strategies in developing the country's national defense amidst those budget constraints. The purchase of second-hand primary weapon system or alutista that is still ongoing until now is also another major concern for the panelists. Meanwhile, regarding international relations, Widya expected presidential candidates to explain how Indonesia can excel its international diplomacy. In addition to this, Widya said the presidential candidates need to state their positions amid the competition among major countries such as the United States and China.
The General Elections Commission KPU has set schedule of electoral stages heading to the 2024 elections, with voting day is set on February 14, 2024. One of the stages of the 2024 election is the cooling off period that will begin after the campaign period is over. What is the cooling off period of election? The following are definition, rules, and schedule of the cooling off period. Let's take a look.
Definitions of cooling off period is stipulated in KPU Regulations number 23 of 2018 about election campaigns. According to Article 1, Section 34, the cooling off period is a period during which election campaign activities are prohibited. During the cooling off period, candidates are prohibited from conducting any campaign activities. Print media, electronic media, online media, social media, and broadcasting stations are prohibited to broadcast news, advertisement, track records, self-image of the candidates or any other forms that may favor or harm the interests of candidates. The cooling off period will take place after the election campaign is completed. According to Article 24, Section 3 of KPU Regulations number 23 of 2018, cooling off period for the 2024 elections will last for 3 days before the voting day, starting from Sunday, February 11 to Tuesday, February 13, 2024.
Coordinating Minister for Political, Legal and Security Affairs Mahfud MD, who is also a vice presidential candidate, ensures that the election task force under his ministry will be free of conflicts of interest.
Coordinating Minister Mahfud said on Tuesday that the task of Election Task Force is to receive reports on election violations and forward them to related authorities such as the police and the Election Supervisory Agency or Bawaslu for verification. Therefore, according to Mahfud, the Election Task Force does not have any conflict of interest because it does not handle the implementation of the elections. Earlier on Wednesday, Mahfud said that the government would monitor the management of complaints on alleged violation in the 2024 election, including the presidential election. He said the government monitored all complaints related to the elections. The government has established a task force to monitor all complaints, which will forward them to the election organizers for a follow-up. Mahfud urged the public who got intimidated by any parties competing in the election not to fight the intimidation back.
Coordinator of the Presidential Expert Staff Ari Dwi Payana ensured President Joko Widodo would continue to carry out its official duties ahead of the general elections. The statement came following a widely discussed rumor that Jokowi has taken a side with certain presidential and vice presidential candidates.
Coordinator of the Presidential Expert Staff, Ari Dwi Payana, said in a statement, President Joko Widodo would continue to carry out his duties as the leader of the government. Ari says the president continues to ensure that every strategic program under his administration are delivered, and people could receive the benefits. Ari gave the statement to respond to a rumor that President Jokowi has taken side with certain presidential and vice presidential candidates for the 2024 elections. Ari emphasizes that the president has tight schedule every day, starting from leading cabinet meetings, attending various events, receiving guests, flying overseas for official visit, to meeting with local people in many regions or also known as Blusukan.
Let's talk about post-holiday news here. The number of airline passengers during Christmas and New Year holidays recently has almost reached the level recorded before the COVID-19 pandemic.
Director General of Air Transport at Transportation Ministry M. Christy Endah Murni said in Jakarta, the number of airline passengers during Christmas and New Year holidays recently reached over 3.75 million. The number was about 78.8% of 4.75 million passengers seen in the same period of 2019 or before the pandemic happened. The total number in the 2023 year-end holidays grew almost 10% from 3.42 million recorded in the same period of 2022. The ministry's data showed that there were 444 commercial aircrafts operating during the holiday period. Christie says it shows that airline industry players have ensured that they meet the rising demand during the holiday season. Christie says that all staff working in the air transportation sector have given their best services without neglecting safety, security, and compliance to regulations to prevent unexpected things from happening.
Elephants and other animals at Berlin Zoo enjoyed a belated Christmas treat of unsold Christmas trees, clearly enjoying the publicity-grabbing recycling event. The yearly tradition across German zoos regularly attracts additional visitors. For the animals, the trees are a special delicacy and treat as they are only available once a year, said Berlin Zoo spokesperson Svenja Eisenbarth. Even though the annual Christmas tree feed is somewhat of a tradition, the zoo does not accept private tree donations. Instead, the zoo teams up with Christmas tree sellers who pack up unsold organic trees and drive them to the zoo. This year, the zoo was delighted to receive 2 lorry loads full. The ice city of Harbin, the snowy capital of northeast China's Heilongjiang province, is attracting record numbers of visitors with its grand and intricate ice sculptures. This year, the park took up 810,000 square meters and comprises of 250,000 cubic meters of ice, state media reports. Vice Director of Marketing at Harbin Ice and Snow World, Zun Zenem, said that the average number of daily visitors to the park this year has almost doubled compared to 2018. Over the New Year holiday, the city's annual Ice and Snow Festival helped draw more than 3 million visitors to Harbin during the 3-day holiday that ended on Monday, generating 5.91 billion yuan in tourism revenue, state media agency Xinhua has reported. Researchers have created the first functional semiconductor made from graphene rather than silicon, heralding a new era of electronics and paving the way for smaller, faster, more efficient devices.
Nearly all modern electronics rely on silicon, a semiconductor which is reaching its limit in the face of ever faster computing. Semiconductors, which are materials that conduct electricity under specific conditions, are foundational components of electronics. The AIR led a team of researchers based in Atlanta, Georgia, and Tianjin, China, to produce a graphene semiconductor that is compatible with conventional microelectronics processing methods, a necessity for any viable alternative to silicon.
The good thing about graphene is not only can you make things smaller and faster and with less heat dissipation, you're actually using properties of electrons that are not accessible in silicon. So this is really a paradigm shift. It's a different way of doing electronics.
The research published in Nature solved the band gap problem, a crucial electronic property that allows semiconductors to switch on and off. Graphene didn't have a band gap until now.
From technology, now we move on to talk about animals. Peru has turned into the birdiest country in the world with 1,879 species registered in its territory, surpassing former leader Colombia, official sources have said. Meantime, Prague Zoo was proud to present their new addition, a critically endangered western lowland gorilla baby.
A joint initiative of the National Service of Natural Areas Protected by the State, the Peruvian Bird Records Committee, or CRAP, the scientific community, and the private sector resulted in the recording of 1,897 bird species in the country. According to the Peruvian Union of Ornithologists president and member of the Peruvian Bird Records Committee, Fernando Angulo, evidence of the new species must be sent to the South American Bird Committee, or SACC, for review and approval. In Prague, the zoo's 10-year-old female Duni gave birth to her first cub just after 9 o'clock in the evening and proudly released a video of the baby gorilla sleeping with her mother. The International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, declared the species as critically endangered in 2016. And the zoo is hoping to transfer the baby to another zoo once it is an adult to continue to breed the species. And from Colombia, with the backdrop of Vida Maitama Moorland, Northwest Colombia, the released wildcat left its cage and ran into the forest. The feline was in rehabilitation for 6 months after being rescued by the Colombian National Police, who found him confined in a small space, malnourished, and with some injuries. The oncilla, or tiger cat, or Leopardus tigrinus, is considered a vulnerable species due to habitat loss and illegal hunting.
Paleontologists discovered a new species of long-necked duck-beaked dinosaur that went extinct 90 million years ago in Patagonia, the Argentine government scientific and research agency CONICET have reported. The fossil remains belong to 4 Rebachisauridae, dinosaur baptized as Sidarsaura marae. The name comes from the Latin terms for star, chosen after the shape of its tail bones. Excavation began in 2012 in the Noken province at a site with rocks that date from the late Cretaceous period, around 93 and 96 million years ago. With an estimated weight of 15 tons and a length of 20 meters or 65 feet, the Sidarsaura marae is considered the biggest Rebachisauridae dinosaur. Moving to sports, Manchester United will have goalkeeper Andre Onana available for FA Cup third-round match against Wigan Athletic, manager Eric Ten Hag says. Details are next in our sports highlights. Manchester United will have goalkeeper Andre Onana available for their FA Cup third-round match against Wigan Athletic, manager Eric Ten Hag said, following talks to delay his departure to the Africa Cup of Nations. United played 30 Monday and Cameroon have a friendly scheduled for Tuesday against Zambia before they kick off the tournament against Guinea on January 15. United languishing 8th in the Premier League, 9 points adrift of the top 4, hosts 5th place Tottenham Hotspur on January 14. United had a roller coaster festive period, beating Aston Villa 3-2 with a stunning comeback before a meek 2-1 defeat at Nottingham Forest that kept the pressure on Ten Hag following the takeover of United by Jim Ratcliffe's Ineos group. Caroline Garcia led France to United Cup semi-finals by defeating Malene Helgo in a singles and teaming up with Edward Roger Vasselin to win doubles decider. Meanwhile, Rafael Nadal, returning from a long injury hiatus, dominated wildcard Jason Kubler with a victory to advance to Brisbane International quarterfinals.
Garcia and Roger Vasselin beat the pair of Ulrike Ekeri and Casper Ruud 7-5, 6-4 in an entertaining mixed doubles decider. The first set was a tight affair until France broke serve to make it 6-5 before holding to
today, and
And from Brisbane, out for nearly a year with a hip problem that required surgery, the 22-time Grand Slam champion overpowered Kubler in the 83 minutes to book his place in the last 8. Nadal had an impressive start as he cruised to a 5-0 lead before Kubler could even settle inside the Pat Rafter Arena. The Australian held his serve in the 6th game and threatened to break the Spaniard in the next, but Nadal came back from a 40-0 down to seal the opener.
The Olympic Aquatic Center, one of only 2 facilities being built in the Paris region for the coming Summer Games, will run on 90% renewable energy, according to the project president, Patrick Ollier.
More than 4,000 solar panels on the roof will help heat the pool water up to 27 degrees, and the concave wooden beam structure helps limit the space that needs to be heated and ventilated. With 5,000 spectator places, 2,000 of which are removable, the site is expected to host the artistic swimming and diving events, as well as qualifying stages of the water polo tournament. The Aquatic Center's pool was first filled with water in mid-December 2023. The filling of more than 5,500 cubic meters of water in the pools was to check that they were watertight, as well as to test the filtration systems throughout the facility. A second phase will take place in February, when the tanks will be emptied and refilled.
That story ends today's news on Focus Today. I am Luisa Kusnandar. Thank you for watching Focus Today and see you next time. Bye-bye.
city of Semarang may not ring a bell as a
We are standing at the gateway of Central Java, or what they would like to call it as the Venice of Java. We are standing at the melting pot of culture.
Hi, I'm Devini Hermawan. I will tell you why you should taste gado-gado as one of the most iconic Indonesian cuisine. So, just like any other salad with dressing, the dressing itself takes the major part to make gado-gado really delicious. Here it is, rendang. So just put, this is the white pepper, shallots in, as well as the beef. This is our rendang. Now we can assemble them into a beautiful bowl of soto ayam Lamongan. A simple but special perkedel kentang. The flavor is really intense.
Indonesian flavor with Chef Devina every Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Western Indonesia time.
That's all for today's edition. Indonesia has different culinary flavors and I will be back with another authentic menu. See you and goodbye.
Luwih opo cek kehe cerita liananira.
Lontar Yusuf is a narrative poem about the life of one of Islam's most popular prophets, Prophet Yusuf.
Lontar itu naskah dan kebetulan ini banyak orang bilang itu naskah kuno. Sebetulnya awalnya lontar itu ditulis di daun lontar medianya itu. Sekarang teknologi itu semakin canggih hingga disalin ke media kertas.
I'm Valerina Daniel and you're watching News Watch on TVRI World live from Indonesia. Let's begin with our first report. Indonesian Foreign Affairs Ministry and Indonesian Embassy in Beirut plan to evacuate Indonesians in Lebanon after the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza Strip has spread into southern part of Lebanon. Foreign Affairs Ministry spokesperson Lalu Muhammad Iqbal said his ministry and the Indonesian embassy in Beirut have communicated with the Indonesian community and Indonesia's peacekeeping troops in Lebanon to check when an evacuation is due. Iqbal said that the conflict is currently taking place at the borders of Israel and Lebanon. Iqbal said that his ministry has prepared the infrastructure needed for evacuation, such as vehicles, evacuation route, and the personnel who will lead the evacuation process. The number of Indonesians in Lebanon is 217 people. The head of Lebanon's powerful armed group Hezbollah said that Israel's killing of the deputy chief of allied Palestinian faction Hamas in Beirut was a flagrant Israeli aggression. In a televised speech, Syed Hassan Nasrallah offered his condolences to Hamas for the attack on Tuesday night that killed Saleh al-Aruri. Tuesday's strike hit the southern Beirut suburb of Dahiyeh in what analysts have said could also be a message from Israel to Hezbollah that even its prime stronghold there can be reached. Israel has neither confirmed or denied the attack. Hezbollah, founded by Iran's Revolutionary Guards in 1980s, is the spearhead of Tehran-backed alliance hostile to Israel and the United States. It fought a month-long war against Israel in 2006. The Palestine Red Crescent Society released a video showing smoke rising from its building in Gaza's Khan Yunis.
PRC said on its ex-social media account that the footage was of the first moments of the targeting of the PRSCS headquarters in Khan Younis, which has led to 7 injuries among the displaced families. The location was verified as Khan Younis from the position of the trees and buildings, which matched satellite imagery of the area. The design of the building also matched file imagery of the same locations after the quake, which is already the deadliest in Japan since at least 2016. Nearly 600 tremors continue to hit the peninsula, raising fears of landslides and further damage to the infrastructure. Meantime, Kohei Kirimoto, an 8th-generation lacquer artist, walked through rubble concerned only for his beloved cat. He put out food and water for not just the 3 cats that lived in his home and workspace, but also for dozens of community felines that lived in Wajima's Asaichi morning market, famed for its winding stalls of seafood, snacks, and crabs. Wajima was hit hardest by a 7.6 magnitude earthquake that struck central Japan on the afternoon of New Year's Day, the strongest in the country since the 2011 Fukushima disaster.
And up next, news update on the preparation for Indonesia's 2024 election, Road to Ballot. The General Elections Commission, KPU, has set schedule of electoral stages heading to the 2024 elections, with voting day is set on February 14, 2024. One of the stages of the 2024 elections is the cooling off period that will begin after the campaign period is over. What is the cooling off period of election? The following are definition, rules, and schedule of the cooling off period. Let's take a look.
Definitions of cooling off period is stipulated in KPU Regulations number 23 of 2018 about election campaigns. According to Article 1, Section 34, the cooling off period is a period during which election campaign activities are prohibited. During the cooling off period, candidates are prohibited from conducting any campaign activities. Print media, electronic media, online media, social media, and broadcasting stations are prohibited to broadcast news, advertisement, track records, self-image of the candidates or any other forms that may favor or harm the interests of candidates. The cooling off period will take place after the election campaign is completed. According to Article 24, Section 3 of KPU Regulations number 23 of 2018, cooling off period for the 2024 elections will last for 3 days before the voting day, starting from Sunday, February 11 to Tuesday, February 13, 2024.
Widya Setiabudi Sumadinata, one of the panelists for the third debate session, said that the presidential candidates can explain their strategy in building a strong national defense. Widya is a professor of global security at Pajajaran University in Bandung.
Widya Setiabudi said on Wednesday that issue on national defense is crucial after the Ministry of Defense said that it has budget limitations. Therefore, presidential candidates are expected to explain their strategies in developing the country's national defense amidst those budget constraints. The purchase of second-hand primary weapon system or Alutista that is still ongoing until now is also another major concern for the panelists. Meanwhile, regarding international relations, Widya expected presidential candidates to explain how Indonesia can excel its international diplomacy. In addition to this, Widya said the presidential candidates need to state their positions amid the competition among major countries such as the United States and China.
We'll be back with more news. Stay with us on Newswatch. Welcome back on Newswatch. The Tourism, Youth and Sports Agency of Ponorogo Regency, East Java states that the United Nations cultural body UNESCO has reviewed its proposal on Reok Ponorogo to become an intangible cultural heritage.
The agency's intangible cultural heritage, UDA says, the artists will be able to develop their art gradually and become more popular to the international audience. Reok Ponorogo is a traditional dance from Ponorogo Regency in East Java. The iconic part of the dance is a large, furry tiger head-shaped mask called Singo Barong. The central government, through Office of the Presidential Chief of Staff, has been striving to make Reok Ponorogo Indonesia's intangible cultural heritage since early 2022.
President Joko Widodo signed Law Number 1, 2024 on the Second Amendment of the 2008 Electronic Information and Transactions, or ITE law. The goal of the Second Amendment of the law is to protect public interest in the digital era.
President Joko Widodo signed the law as a follow-up on House of Representatives' approval on the Second Amendment of the law in December last year. Also on Tuesday, State Secretary Pratikno officially archived the law, making its implementation effective starting from now. Through the amended law, government expects to protect public interest from various kinds of disruptions coming from abuses of information and transactions through electronic channel. In addition, the amendment is expected to answer people's complaints that the previous version of the law had many vague provisions which could harm the people themselves. As the vague clauses have created public controversy, the government acknowledged that the law should be amended to create sense of justice and legal certainty in the society. One example of change in the vague provisions is the revised Article 27, Paragraph 3, which stipulates criminal sanction towards insult or defamation through electronic-based information and/or documents.
Minister of Trade Zulkifli Hasan said that the value of Indonesian digital trade or e-commerce transactions amounted to 533 trillion rupiah or $34 billion in 2023.
Speaking at an event on Trade Outlook in Jakarta, Minister Zulkifli Hasan said the total of digital trade in 2022 was 476 trillion rupiah. 2021 was only 403 trillion rupiah, and in 2023, this value is predicted to reach 533 trillion rupiah. According to Zulkifli, the progress of the Indonesian digital trade transactions showed a huge potential contribution to Indonesia's economy growth in the past few years. In order to support the potential of digital commerce growth, the Ministry of Trade has issued Minister of Trade Regulations, Permendag number 31 of 2023 concerning business licensing, advertising, development and supervision of business activities and trading through electronic systems. The regulations stated the separation of social commerce, e-commerce, and social media. It also set up the minimum price limit of $100 per unit for imported products that are directly sold by traders to Indonesia through a cross-border digital trading platform. In addition, the Ministry of Trade also organized a national online shopping day, Harbolnas, which recorded a transaction value of 25.7 trillion rupiah in 2023. This was higher than the value of transaction in 2022.
Vietnamese ambassador to Indonesia Ta Phan Tong says Vietnam and Indonesia have improved bilateral cooperation in various sectors from economy to tourism. Bilateral Indonesia-Vietnam relations increase along with improved economy and political conditions in both countries.
Addressing the annual press meeting at the Vietnam Embassy in Jakarta on Thursday, Ambassador Ta Phan Tong said the relationship between Vietnam and Indonesia has an important role in the establishment of ASEAN community, as well as the role and the positions of ASEAN within the regional structure. Ambassador Tong hopes that more Indonesian entrepreneurs and tourists will visit Vietnam. Vietnam will also provide more halal product services to attract Indonesian tourists.
Egypt is preparing to spend billions, doubling the size of a lavish new capital it is building in the desert 45 kilometers east of Cairo, where the first residents are clicking in, the head of the company overseeing the project said.
The city is the biggest of a series of mega projects that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi says are needed for economic development and to accommodate a growing population of 105 million, but critics say divert resources and increase Egypt's debt burden. Government employees transferred in July to minister and offices built in the new city's first phase, 8 years after the launch of the project known as the New Administrative Capital, or NAC. An electric train from eastern Cairo began operating last spring, and an elevated monorail is due to start from the second quarter of this year, Abbas said. Up to 100,000 housing units have been finished, and 1,200 families have moved in, he added. Major banks and other businesses will move their headquarters by the first quarter of 2024.
Our target in phase 1 is 1.5 million. And I think it's the same in phase 2. So all this need services. All those people we're going to need the services like hospitals, schools, commercial, everything, plus the roads and the landscape, everything on this.
Acount is poised to appoint a consultant to draw up a master plan for the capital's second, third, and fourth phases, Abbas said. Phases 1 and 2 will each have a projected 1.5 million residents, and each will cover 40,000 fedans or 168 square kilometers. Work on phase 1 should run from later this year until 2027.
Every day, all the ministers and some of the public authorities and organizations.
Denmark's Queen Margaret II defied a cold spell to ride through the streets of Copenhagen in a gold-coated horse carriage for the last time as monarch before handing over the throne to her son, Crown Prince Frederik, next week.
The 83-year-old queen, who was crowned in 1972, announced on live TV during her traditional New Year's Eve speech that she intends to abdicate the throne, taking many in the country of 5.9 million people by surprise. The Queen has enjoyed broad support throughout her life from the public, who have described her as a tactful and yet creative personality, often designing costumes and scenography for theater plays and ballets interpreting the fairy tales and famous Danish author Hans Christian Andersen. She became heir to her father in 1953 at 13 after a constitutional amendment allowed women to inherit the throne. She will abdicate on January 14th and be succeeded by her eldest son, who will become King Frederik X.
Researchers have created the first functional semiconductor made from graphene rather than silicon, heralding a new era of electronics and paving the way for smaller, faster, more efficient devices.
Nearly all modern electronics rely on silicon, a semiconductor which is reaching its limit in the face of ever faster computing. Semiconductors, which are materials that conduct electricity under specific conditions, are foundational components of electronics. The AIR led a team of researchers based in Atlanta, Georgia, and Tianjin, China, to produce a graphene semiconductor that is compatible with conventional microelectronics processing methods, a necessity for any viable alternative to silicon.
The good thing about graphene is not only can you make things smaller and faster and with less heat dissipation, you're actually using properties of electrons that are not accessible in silicon. So this is really a paradigm shift. It's a different way of doing electronics.
The research published in Nature solved the band gap problem, a crucial electronic property that allows semiconductors to switch on and off. Graphene didn't have a band gap until now.
Ice and snow have made Harbin City of the northeast China's Heilongjiang province a popular destination for winter tourism, attracting numerous tourists from China and abroad over the New Year holiday.
Despite the freezing temperatures, visitors flock to the Harbin Ice and Snow World, a must-go tourist resort in the city. It might be surprising for some, but the majority of visitors are tourists from south experiencing the snow for the first time. This winter, the park took up an area of 810,000 square meters, and 250,000 cubic meters of ice were used to create thousands of landscapes. Harbin is also famous for its unique culture, architecture, and its warm hospitality. To welcome visitors, the locals have transformed their city into a sleepless carnival, flying an artificial moon across the sky. Tourists were also given the chance to sightsee in hot air balloons. Some even offered free transport with their own cars. Even animals such as tigers, penguins, and polar bears joined the task force to welcome tourists.
Paleontologists discovered a new species of long-necked duck-beaked dinosaur that went extinct 90 million years ago in Patagonia, the Argentine government scientific and research agency said. The fossil remains belong to 4 Ribacesauridae dinosaurs, baptized as Psittacosaura marae. The name comes from the Latin terms for star, chosen after the shape of its tail bones. Excavations began in 2012 in the Nerken province at a site with rocks that date from the late Cretaceous period, around 93 and 96 million years ago. With an estimated weight of 15 tons and a length of 20 meters, the Psittacosaura marae is considered the biggest Ribacesauridae dinosaurs. And that wraps up today's edition of Newswatch. I am Valina Daniel. Thanks for watching and goodbye.
The good quality of marine products has made Indonesia accepted by 158 countries for export. Its main markets are the United States, Japan, China, Taiwan, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Italy, Vietnam, and Hong Kong. There are many main marine export commodities from Indonesia, such as shrimp, tuna, and other types of pelagic fish. Banyuwangi Regency is one of the marine fish producing centers in East Java. Fishery products from public waters in this district amounts to 185,699 tons. The Fishery and Marine Statistics Report for East Java Province shows that around 150 tons of marine fish are marketed to the national capital, Jakarta. In 2019, former Minister of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries Susi Pujiastuti, while still in office, she reviewed maritime potential in Banyuwangi Regency. Ms. Susi's hope that all related parties in Banyuwangi will be able to develop maritime
Perkenalkan, nama saya Hilman Anwar. Saya selaku koordinator dari Fish Market Kampung Mandar. Nah, kami membangun Kampung Mandar itu dari tahun 2017. Waktu 2017 itu kami mendapat predikat oleh Bupati Pak Azwar Anas menjadi kampung atau desa terkumuh se-Kabupaten Banyuwangi. Nah, kami bergerak dari pemuda, jadi kami mengumpulkan beberapa pemuda dan kami membuat sistem yang bagaimana kampung ini agar masyarakatnya tidak membuang sampah sembarangan. Kalau tahun 2017 itu Kampung Mandar tidak memiliki pengangkut sampah, jadi mereka masyarakat membuang sampahnya sembarangan, ada di sungai, ada di laut. Nah, kami berhasil memperbaiki dalam setahun. Kemudian kami diberikan satu event oleh pemerintah Kabupaten Banyuwangi, yaitu Fish Market. Kami di tahun berikutnya kami diberikan event kembali 2019. Dirasa 2019 itu sukses, kami menginisiasi bahwa kampung kami ingin menjadi kampung kuliner. Dan alhamdulillah saat ini kampung kami bisa dikatakan bahwa kampung paling ramah yang ada di Kabupaten Banyuwangi. Dan kami sekarang sudah ada kurang lebih 35-40 warung ikan bakar yang ada di Kampung Mandar. Konsep Fish Market sendiri berbeda dari kebanyakan restoran atau rumah makan ikan bakar. Jadi di mana penjual ikan dan jasa bakar itu kita pisah. Jadi yang menjual masyarakat terpisah dan yang membakar juga masyarakat terpisah. Jadi harapan kami bahwa keuntungan yang didapat bisa berefek kepada masyarakat banyak. Awal mula ide ini tercetus adalah karena kami prihatin kepada kampung kami yang negatif bisa menjadi kampung terkumuh se-Kabupaten Banyuwangi, dan kedua kami ingin meningkatkan ekonomi masyarakat. Jadi penduduk Kampung Mandar ini lebih dari 50% adalah nelayan. Jadi kami ingin meningkatkan harga dari sektor ikan. Jadi supaya nelayan kesejahteraannya terangkat. Alhamdulillah sekarang di Kampung Mandar sendiri sudah ada 35-40 warung ikan bakar, di mana pekerja atau karyawan sudah bisa mencapai 150-200 karyawan. Jadi ekonomi masyarakat terangkat. Kalau yang dulu mau makan besok aja bingung, alhamdulillah kalau sekarang sudah lebih baik lagi. Rata-rata kalau untuk Fish Market kita bisa omset per bulan itu sekitar kurang lebih 150-200 juta. Jadi kita di Fish Market menaungi dari 7 warung ikan bakar. Nah, rata-rata dari mereka kurang lebih antara 1 juta per tiap harinya. Harapan ke depan bahwa kampung kami bisa menjadi pilihan utama dari tamu atau wisatawan luar kota atau mancanegara. Jadi harapan kami adalah kampung kami menjadi kampung wisata yang berkelanjutan. Ke depan kami akan terus berinovasi. Yang paling dekat adalah kita akan membuat oleh-oleh yang kita pusatkan di dalam gang. Jadi harapannya masyarakat yang berada di dalam gang mendapat menaikkan ekonomi dari sisi sektor oleh-oleh yang akan kita kembangkan. Selain itu, kita juga akan mengembangkan dari sisi wisata mangrove yang kemungkinan tahun depan akan kita garap. Sementara investor dari awal kita pembuatan atau mengeksplor Kampung Mandar belum menggunakan investor, dan harapannya ke depan juga kami tetap mandiri dengan kekuatan atau keuangan yang kami miliki agar masyarakat keuntungannya mengalir kepada masyarakat kami sendiri. Kami yakin ke depan bahwa prospek dari bisnis seafood atau ikan bakar ini akan mengalami peningkatan dengan harapan masyarakat lebih sejahtera.
Catch fish. So fishermen from this village do not go to sea regularly, but adjust to the weather and season. These fishermen in Mandar village are traditional fishermen who uses boats without engines or canoes to go out of the sea. To catch fish, traditional fishermen use nets or net that have been brought and spread around their boats. They go to work in the afternoon and come home in the morning. And immediately deliver the fish they catch to the fish auctions. At fish auctions, fishermen do not only play a role as parties who provide marine catches, but as sellers of fish and seafood he gets from the sea. Apart from that, they will also serve the buyers who come and bid on the selling price of fish. There is 92.11% of the role of fishermen's families in Kampung Mandar village, who assists in direct distributions process in markets and fishermen's collectors' houses. In addition, this is done to reduce other costs when having to hire workers. According to a report from the Central Statistic Agency, throughout 2021, there were 869.9 thousand tons of fish or seafood coast of Indonesia's ocean supports enormous potential in the development of fishery businesses, both capture fisheries and aquaculture. The people of Mandar know this potential very well. That's why, through this fishery sector, they work together to achieve common prosperity.